My name is Ayat Shakari. I'm the co-founder of Invest and FigPie, a conversion rate optimization company and marketing tool. Today, I'm going to talk to you guys about 5 CRO conversion rate optimization misconceptions that every SEO should know. Conversion rate optimization doesn't happen in a vacuum. All the different marketing initiatives that we do are all impacting each other. So knowing a little bit about CRO will help you and will go a really long way. Number one thing is there's a lot of clickbait when it comes to conversion rate optimization. So there's all these sensational case studies that talk about 85% increase in conversion rates and 30% increase by just changing the color of a CTA. That's not CRO. And that's why it's super important to make sure that we communicate this and we understand that conversion rate optimization is a lot more complex. There's a lot more that goes into conversion rate optimization in order to get some really, really amazing results. And CRO, unfortunately, is not about just changing some colors. There's a lot more that goes into it in order for us to really be able to see that change, understanding your visitors and conducting a lot of research. The other thing is that you have to know is best practices often don't work when it comes to conversion rate optimization, because what happens and what impacts one website is not going to necessarily impact your website. I want to make sure I understand my visitors, what's going to impact my visitors, and based on that, I'm going to be making the changes. The other key thing is to remember CRO does not equal A/B testing and vice versa. CRO, I like to always explain it, it's kind of like the umbrella. It contains all of the different research areas, and I'm really looking into it. I'm digging in to my customer research. I'm conducting interviews. I'm conducting user testing. I'm digging into analytics for insights. I'm looking at my competitors. What are they doing? Heat maps, session recordings, UX, all of that is under the umbrella of CRO. So there's a lot of work that CROs actually have to do. But in order for me to validate all of this information, that's where A/B testing comes in. I can't really be making a change and then looking, oh, well, what type of an impact did it have? Because just looking at my analytics won't tell me much. A/B testing is going to help me validate exactly whether or not that change had the impact on my visitors. And remember, again, even though we've done the research and we've found a problem area, it doesn't mean that my solution is necessarily going to resonate with the visitors. That's why you really need to A/B test it in order to validate it even further. The other thing is that a lot of times people say, A/B test everything, A/B test this, A/B test that. But that means that I'm really not conducting any research. I'm just randomly choosing anything. I get to bring in any group of designers, I can bring in any group of people, and they'll have 100 different suggestions that I should do on a website. Does that mean that I should A/B test all of those things? Because A/B testing takes time. It takes effort. It takes development. But I want to make sure that whatever I'm testing, it's grounded in some sort of research. I'm looking for a repeatable, sustainable process. And the only way I can get to that process is by doing a lot of these different things. I'm trying to really conduct all this research. You'll notice that a lot of A/B testing tools report that only 15 to 20% of the tests that they launch on their platforms yield positive results. That's crazy, 15 to 20%. This is Optimizely, VWO, Google Optimize before it's, well, obviously it's currently sunsetting or already sunset. But the idea is that a lot of tests don't actually perform well. And the reason why is they're not grounded in research. They're not being vetted. They're just random experiments that people just think of. Let's just test this and see how it performs. Now, I will say that if you're going to add an element on your website, you do want to make sure that that actually gets tested. The reason why is because, again, you don't want to add something onto your website that might impact performance, that might impact your visitors, without necessarily kind of figuring out whether or not it's going to have a positive result, yield a positive result for you. The third point that I want to make is that you want to brush up on your stats. So you don't need a degree in statistics. I definitely don't have a degree in statistics, I'll tell you that. But you need to understand some of the basics. First of all, you want to make sure that your test runs long enough. I talked a little bit about those sensational case studies. A lot of times when you dig into the data of those sensational case studies, they haven't run long enough. They haven't reached a significant result. So you want to make sure you avoid false positives and negatives in order to make sure that you're reaching a specific sample size. Now, sometimes your sample size might just be 3 days. We always recommend that you run an experiment for at least a minimum of a week in order for you to be able to make sure that the test hit an entire business cycle, right? Because again, when I'm like thinking about my customers and when they're coming, I want to think about weekends. I want to think about the entire week. So we always say a minimum of a week. We had one client, for example, that we'd always see a surge of conversions on the 15th of the month and the end of the month, and those are payday. So again, you want to make sure that you ran it long enough, minimum of a week. And when you're thinking about the chance to win, I always say, look at an 85% to 90% chance to win. And the reason why, again, because there's always still a chance that it actually might be a false positive, you want to make sure you make that chance even lower. So just make sure that you look at all those stats, you consider all of those areas, you conduct a sample size. There's lots of calculators out there. You can just look at your sample size, figure out what the sample size is before you actually run the experiment in order for you to make sure that you don't run into any issues when it comes to the stats of the experiment. The fourth area that I want to kind of talk about is that CRO is a mix of usability and persuasion. So the first thing is, of course, like I said, CRO, there's a lot of user testing, a lot of usability. I want to make sure that I'm understanding all of that. I want to make sure that from a UX perspective, I've actually noted all of the different areas throughout the website. I've tested them. I make sure that things are working properly. The flow is proper on the website, correct? But at the same time, there's also that persuasive piece. That's where the magic happens, right? Because your brand and your unique value propositions, that's what makes your specific site different. And that's how I'm going to differentiate myself from the rest of the competition. What are my unique value propositions? How do I make sure I communicate this information to my customer? And what persuasive tactics can I use leveraging my UVPs on my website? That's what really distinguishes different sites. I mean, a lot of times you go to various e-commerce websites throughout, when you're shopping and whatnot, and you find that a lot of times they all look really the same. If you just take away that, logo, they all look the same. So how are you going to set yourself apart? How is your product really different? If I want to capture somebody's attention and persuade them that this is the product that you need and you need to buy, then I need to be a little bit different in the way that I communicate that information. And it doesn't have to be just, of course, e-commerce sites. It is also B2B. People are comparing. So how are they going to compare your website against the rest of the competition? How do you stand a little bit different? And that's all about the different research that you conduct. We do a lot of customer interviews, and a lot of times those customer interviews help us get those insights on why visitors selected this particular brand or this particular product or this particular service and didn't select a different one. And that's really important information in order for you to be able to kind of distinguish yourself on your site. The last consideration that you want to have when it comes to A/B testing tools is that they have an impact on performance. Now, we hear it a lot, and this comes actually a lot from the SEO industry, that A/B testing tools, this is what's causing the site performance, is being impacted, and it's negative because of the A/B testing that's running. So the first thing that you want to remember is, yes, they do have an impact. Like any type of script that's running on a website, everything is going to have an impact on the site. So what I would always recommend is, first of all, if you're going to be running any type of A/B testing, you want to make sure what other scripts is my client or are we running on the site in order for you to be able to kind of figure out whether or not, how is A/B testing going to run with all these different other scripts. That's the kind of number one thing, is there's sometimes a slew of different tools that your client or you may be running on the site. You want to figure out what those are they necessary, and whether or not A/B testing can fit. Depending on the A/B testing tool, some tools are faster than others. Like, for example, Google Optimize, which is actually pretty fast compared to some of the other tools. It just takes long for that tool to actually load up. So you just want to make sure that whenever you're evaluating what tool you want to select, you want to choose the one that is actually going to load up a little bit faster. And the last consideration is, of course, when you're creating the A/B test, depending on the complexity of your A/B test, it may take the script a little bit longer to run. I always tell people that when it comes to A/B testing, you're going to see a little bit of a flicker. It's just impossible. We cannot avoid the flicker. It's very, very, very quick, depending on, again, the tool and the complexity of the test that you're actually running. Always remember that when you're running an experiment, this is a minimum viable product. I am trying to just justify whether or not I want to hard code this on my site. Remember, you're creating a use case. A lot of times it's so complicated to actually go ahead and hard code on your website, but you need to create some sort of use case to your higher ups in order to tell them that this makes sense for us to kind of move higher in priority in terms of development because we've seen these types of results. We've seen this type of an increase in conversion rates. What I'd like to kind of close with is, again, there are some really key do's and don'ts when it comes to conversion rate optimization. The do's are make sure that whatever kind of testing that you do, it's thoughtful testing. You want to make sure that you're asking a lot of questions when it comes to conversion rate optimization. You want to understand the basic of the statistics. The don'ts, don't do the best practices and just rely on that without necessarily validating whether or not it really will be meaningful for your visitors. Changing a CTA color is not conversion rate optimization. And don't test everything. Make sure that's thoughtful and you're actually thinking about what is going to impact my visitors. I hope this was helpful for you. You can reach me on my various social media accounts, and happy testing.